Hi, welcome to this week's chat with Matteo from. I can't even remember. From Shoutout UK.
We'll just cut that right. Start again.
We've had the worst start ever. We've tried this about 5 times this week, so bear with us while we get our bearings and over the frustrations. We're going to talk about Occupy Parliament this week, and we have been taking it in shifts to go there, so we're still adjusting back to real world. I'll let Kiki start because she went there first, and Matteo was there.
Yep, and Chris.
I went there first. I was there on the Friday night, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you were on the Friday night, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there on the Friday evening. I turned up to the first shebang of it when the initial call out, and I rocked up like ready for a trip to the Outer Hebrides or like Mount Everest or something with a massive backpack, thinking that mate, very naive Ginge, thinking that everything's going to be hunky dory. Like it's all going to be sweet and roses, and the idea of like we're going to camp out. We're having a big camp out. It's going to be singing. There's going to be guitars, maybe a bit of kumbaya. So that illusion that I had got completely blown out the window when I turn up and they're like, no tents, and you're like, what? I thought we're meant to be camping here for 9 days. No tents, not allowed them. And then the fun and games started from then. So I waited around for a little while, stayed until about 10 o'clock, and then started to head home because I knew I had a busy day meeting up with you guys on the Saturday. Well, not you, Keith, because I didn't know you was coming down until later on in the day. So I went home because nothing was happening. Then on the Saturday was the TUC demo, so went to that. Got to go and chat with. It was Class War, wasn't it, Key?
Yeah. Class War and Reclaim the City. Reclaim the City.
And being in still being new to everything, and being in with them was really different and exciting and fun. And then I got a call that Key's coming down, so I met up with Key after we'd kind of just marched. These guys were pretty much called in the whole time. The police was on these guys constantly. But they was fairly peaceful. There was just like the few chants going out and everything. And then I met up with you just after 1ish, and then that was it. We went to Hyde Park, and then the fun and games started. Yeah, you carry on from there.
Do you want to go through if we can get P back in? When we went there, what it kind of was, where they had these 2 giant structures, like the Occupy Democracy structures, the big white ones you can see on the field. And as they were on the Hyde Park, they asked to have some help taking it down, because Occupy were on the pavement still at the front of Parliament Square. So we walked that down. We almost got kettled as we walked down, and a few people panicked, so the barriers kind of went to the side, and everyone just went, poof. We kind of just legged it in different directions. It was just like, why are we running? I don't know, just keep running. By the time we got to Parliament Square, they were shoulder to shoulder around the square of the grass, so you couldn't actually get on the grass. So we just thought, oh, fuck it, and we just ran. We ran through them.
You missed out Buckingham Palace. You went past Buckingham Palace. You came down Constitution Hill. I'd met with Matteo, and I met up with those guys, and just as we met up with you, the march was going. So you went down Constitution Hill with these massive pyramid kind of structures of 20 foot. Weren't no small things. They were massive.
Yeah.
And then you went down Constitution Hill, right at Buckingham Palace, and that's when they started to panic. They was like, this is not.
I don't know. I don't kind of know where you mean.
Because as you come down Constitution Hill, you went round, didn't you, Dave? Because Dave was with you, and he said they was right outside Buckingham Palace, and then chucked a right and round.
Yeah. They wanted us to go left.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, we're not going left. We're going right. Yeah, and they all just panicked, and that's when they got the TGS blokes out, and they had the blue uniforms on, and they were really close. They were literally, there's a video on there, they were like shoving us because they just did not like the thought of us going down there, and we were just like, don't shove me, stop shoving me. And it's quite intimidating because obviously you're masked, and they get a little bit freaked out when you're masked, kind of thing, and then they're sort of like panicking, you're panicking, they're just trying to stop you doing what you want to do. But yeah, I can't even remember walking past Buckingham Palace, to be honest. I'm just like just was so worried about the way that they were like literally side to side, and we were all just so on our heckles because they were so close and it kept like coming at us.
Yeah, and then you got on to Parliament Square, and they were shoulder to shoulder, wasn't they? There was like, it was, what would you say Parliament Square was? Say like 75 foot squared, like 75 yards squared, about that, I would say, roughly.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And there was shoulder to shoulder, 5-0, big luminous jackets with their batons of democracy ready, and you're like, okay, these
You're
guys.
collecting the helicopter, the load of police vans.
We were separate to you. We were separate.
Yeah, you guys weren't with me at that point.
Yeah.
That was when, because we got onto that field. The only reason we got onto that field was to literally just run at them and through them. And I'm quite small, so I managed to get through pretty easy. And we just kept running. Then by the time we were on the field, we were all just hyper. And then Occupy just ended up coming from the other direction, and we all just ended up on the field. And they were a little bit nervous because police would still turn around and saying, if you come on this field, you're going to get arrested. And we were just like, come, or we're going to get arrested. Come, all of you. And then everyone just started coming on. Yeah.
Well, we were behind you, wasn't we?
You're screwed. There's only 10 of you. You can get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because they can easily arrest.
Well, there was a good
50 or 60 then.
There was a good 20, 30 of us that ran at the police, kind of thing. But we weren't like violent or nothing. It was kind of one of those, right, are we going to high top this or go underneath or skid on the grass? How are we going to do this shit? As long as you get through whatever way you can. Few people, like, they were grabbing people, so people were actually getting grabbed as they were doing it. So it wasn't like an easy one to get through. Like I said, the smaller you are, I suppose the easier that was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We was behind, so we missed this. I missed this thanks to some film crew that was like
shall remain
behind. We won't name this illustrious film crew. Decided to take scenery shots when there was some things going on, and then I began to frog march them. I'm like, right, let's go now. I can see the helicopter above now. They've hit Parliament Square. Let's go. We're missing some stuff here. Let's go.
The thing is, you're working on adrenaline at that time, aren't you? Because you're on there, and you're like, oh. And obviously, by day 3 or 4, that's not there anymore. It's gone. By day 2, that was kind of gone. That oomph. And I felt by the time they got everyone off Parliament Square, I thought, oh, for God's sake, do you know what I mean?
You're jumping ahead. So hard. Big though. There was so much before that.
Are we going in schedule?
Yeah, that was like, oh man, that was. I marched these guys, and they was like, how far to go? I really did try and get them as quick as possible to there, because I just had the feeling it was going to be going off. But then when I turned up, I had a different scenario to when you turned up, because you had the complete, what we're going to do, and you broke through those lines and did the first move. So when we turned up, all we saw was divisions of police absolutely everywhere, and I was like, what the is this? What the hell is going on here? Because we turn and it's like, what? Why is there so many police here? But you'd already hit that, and you was on there dancing around. You was there. You was on that grass. You was gone.
Yeah. I was really reveling in that. I've just felt so much adrenaline going through my body at that time. I was just like, woo, woo. It's like, couldn't believe it. But I think that's the difference between the Occupy and the Anonymous. I'm not saying that Occupy aren't pro-action, but the class war guys and the Reclaim the City, they are clearly direct action, and that was what that was at that point. That was a direct action, and it was fun. It was so much fun. I was just looking around thinking, are they going to come and get me now? What's going on? You just don't know what to expect. And I think it just baffled them. They didn't see it coming.
I had that fear moment when we turned up. Your fear moment was when you got there, and like everything else apart from that was like, well, I've done this now. It don't matter. Like, you ain't doing that. I've got it. I rock up and it's like, oh, World War. I'm thinking World War III is just about to happen.
You were panicking, yeah. You were panicking.
Mate, I was like, I won't say I had some incriminated evidence on me, but I had that there was incriminating things around me, so I couldn't go gung ho right at that moment. And not knowing the scenario, to have walked in completely blank, and I'm thinking, they've just got on there. These are all going to come in and nab them. Do I go in right now and then get Lord straight away? And I was like, well, no, I just need to take a second because this is a little bit too much. And Key's on there. Come on, Chris. Come on. Let's go. Freedom. I'm like a rabbit.
What I found shocking was the sheer amount of police, because, I mean, it wasn't a large protest, you know. There wasn't that many people there on the green. In Parliament Square, and it was just surrounded. I mean, there was police van after police van after police van, and even today, for example, when it's basically died down, there is tons of police there. This must have cost millions, $500,000 just on the helicopter that I mentioned earlier, where they got out.
Yeah.
And it's just, what's the point? Surely, from an establishment point of view, if you're thinking straight, you think, okay, these guys want to protest. They're a small group. Let's just leave them to do what they want. We're gonna seem like a fair democracy for doing that. People aren't going to pay attention to them as much because the police aren't there, because the police attract attention more than deviate it away. So I don't know. To me, it made absolutely, like, the government reaction made absolutely no sense. It seemed like desperation again, because being so close to home, on a bit of green, you know, because that square has a lot of history. You know, it's a history of being somewhere that you can go with a placard without telling anyone and just stand there, and if there's enough of you, you can protest for however long you like. All days of the year if you really must, and you should be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But that sort of ideal has been squashed. They've tried to eliminate it and so forth.
It's public land,
I'm worried
isn't it?
again that you're seeing that coming back. Sorry, go on.
It's public land. That Boris has claimed it as. Obviously, they're the private wardens and things like that, but it is actually public land.
Yeah.
The ability to protest on there is stated 24/7. You can protest on there 24/7, but the bylaws that they put in and enforce.
They're just making them up as they're going along. They really are.
It seemed that way from Friday to Saturday. They changed, and then you went. P was there on a Monday, and then they changed again on the Wednesday when I went, and then they'll probably change again when we go again tomorrow. It's unbelievable that just this, like you say, Matteo, the best thing that they could have done was just left it, not giving it the attention, and just we'll go for it. But the fear factor they had, I was leaving last night, and that one thing that you just said about how much does this cost, it was run around. I heard some numbers of a few million. It had to be. It's got to be a few million easily. It's got to be at least 2 million.
The helicopter is $500,000.
That was called out at least twice. It was out twice. It was out on the Saturday, or near enough all day. But as I was leaving, I went to the Methodist church to get a charge up, which is on the far left-hand side of Parliament Square. As you go off, you got the St Paul's, you got the cathedral there, and then it's around the corner. And as around the corner, there's this little side road. There was 7, 8, 9 vans there. There was still more vans when I left up Whitehall. Another 5 vans, packed with officers. So that's like, well, how much that costing? All on standby, all there.
That is madness. If you think about it, it's just the expenditure that these people have to defending people from peaceful individuals is insane. It's insanely high. It's just ridiculously high. And you just wonder because not
It's
a
just
single
crazy.
politician, despite the fact that you were about 2 minutes away from Parliament, not a single politician came out to speak on the issue. And
No.
you are their constituents. You know, these are the people that they're supposed to be representing, and not a single one came out and just. I mean, could you imagine if instead of sending out police, a load of conservative ministers and backbenchers came out to listen to you? How much of a difference would that make? Even if they didn't do anything from it, just from a PR perspective of theirs, they would come out and listen to you, and your movement would. It would be almost as if you'd lose support because what you're saying would become not true because they'd be like, oh, you're not listening to us, but we're right here. We came out of Parliament, we're right here listening to you. What are your grievances? I mean, that would have been a much smarter move.
Yeah, and just the way that the police have taken it and the way that they've gone about it, like this whole tarpaulin incident is just a load of rubbish. You know, the whole lot of just trying to, the fact that their wardens will literally walk and shake them to make sure they don't go to sleep, that is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. It's lower than pathetic, actually. If they just left them, they'd actually achieve more.
Yeah.
They're actually making it worse for themselves because they're all they're doing is gaining more attention from being like the way that they're as brutal as they're being, like dragging them out and literally using pressure points. They were using brat packs, army style thingies with things on the back of their pads on the back of their hands so that when they hit you, they can hit you harder and not bruise you, but it hurts more. And it's kind of like to bring out tactical army surplus wear. It's a bunch of protesters, not maximum over 50, 60 at most points.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's madness to think about all of that, and obviously, I mean, we always got to keep reminding ourselves that we live in a democracy. This idea that it's supposedly a democracy, where we should be thankful for what we have and so forth. And to me, I mean that whole idea of being thankful for what you have, I think is complete and utter rubbish. So it's just that it's like, for example, saying, oh well, Chinese sweatshop workers get paid $1 an hour, $1 a day. Sorry, they'd be lucky to get $1 an hour, and it'd be like, oh well, it could be worse. Yeah, they could be slaves, but doesn't mean that they can't fight for a better condition. It's like, yes, we in the West live a lot better than most people around the world. Doesn't mean we have the duty, not the right. I wouldn't call it a right to protest. I would call it a duty to protest and to improve society for the next generation. Because I mean, a lot of people don't, I think, deem enough on what they're not doing. Because if you don't do anything, somehow that is guilt-free. You have just as much responsibility and guilt as, for example, the CEO of Shell for polluting the world. Not because you're polluting, but because you have the ability and the voice to say something that a person in Africa wouldn't be able to. You have the right to go and protest. Yes, they might use military gear to get you off Parliament Square. They might use certain tactics, but at least you're not being shot. And therefore, because of that, you have the right, and not even just right, you have the duty to go out there and do something about it. Speak, do whatever you want.
Yeah, I feel the same with that. Yeah, definitely.
Because we are lucky in this world, that we're lucky in this part of the world, that we have enough rights because of our parents and stuff that fought for these rights. Let's not be mistaken; they weren't given to us; we fought for them.
Yeah.
And because of that, we have a duty to carry on that fight in a way. It's a duty not just for that; it's a duty to maintain the rights we have.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
because in the end, you can blame nobody but yourself.
No, and it's kind of like the way that people on the with the people on the square, when people are saying, well, you to protest is to accept that you accept your rights or something. So protesting can make it worse or something like that. I understand what they're saying, but at the same time, I think we have to be heard. The people have to be heard, and extreme measures are having to be put in place now to be heard, because you're right, if it gets to the point where we're like those countries and we have our rights taken away from us completely, where we're shot in the street, then we're really looking at some serious lack on the communication. It's going to be gone. We're not going to have any chance to stand up for ourselves soon. I really think people need to grab it by the balls right now.
That argument that, like you say, that argument that they have, like that you're giving consent to be governed, it's like,
that's the one.
Yeah, you're showing consent by showing dissent, that you disagree with what they're doing, and that somehow shows consent. I find that a little bit.
I don't think that makes sense in my opinion, simply because, and that's my opinion, of course, but it's like, for example, saying that, I'm not going to do anything because therefore they don't have to govern me. It doesn't work like that. I'm sorry.
But I'm not going to pay my bills. I'm not going to pay my council tax, and I'm just not going to live within the system. I'm going to get a little caravan somewhere and fuck you all. That's what that kind of feels like.
Yeah, but the trouble with that
You know
is that they will get you, because you need road tax to drive that little caravan. There is no part of England that isn't owned by somebody.
Yeah.
Most probably the Queen.
Anyone that doesn't feel that they're governed, or it feels that they are free in some way, but I don't mean free, man. Well, I kind of do in a way, but it's a false kind of free, because while there is still slavery going on in the world elsewhere, nobody in the UK is free, because you can't call yourself free while other people are slaves.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. You're fighting for your free will to be able to do what you would like to do, because you say I'm a big believer in the idea to protest, in the idea to also vote. I believe that you should use the system to change it, because we're given such a simple setup in this society, that money is the only thing that changes the world and the way we live under it. And if you get into Parliament, you can paint the world, you can paint Britain pink if you put a legislation through Parliament. Enough people voted for it, and it's funny, but legally that is exactly what would happen. If you get enough MPs to vote for that bill, it will go through Parliament and it will happen. Point is that if you get enough people in Parliament, you get enough MPs on side, or you get enough activists as parliamentarians, you can turn the UK into a moneyless society, into whatever you want it to be. So my belief is that we're living in a society where we're so built around our social norms, the social sector of it all, with the media, etc., that you can't go outside the system anymore, because it will demonize you. Like, if you look at the way Occupy, for example, are always portrayed in the press, it's always like hippies, always related to drugs, related to never knowing what they're doing. The media demonizes them to such an extent because of the way they are, because of the way they live, because they don't accept social norms. And the trouble with our revolution, or evolution, whatever you want to call it, is that you need the mainstream of people on your side for it to change. You need them, then you need the police, and then you've won. If you don't get mainstream people on your side, you can scream as much as you like, but nobody will care, because you're still going to be the minority. It's like, for example, the thing is, though. Huh?
Yeah, sorry, no, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the People's Assembly, which is sad, because on the one hand, I agree with what they're doing. Their PR's on point, in the sense that they are marketing themselves towards the mainstream of the working class person. But, I mean, they've got a hell of a lot of money, and a lot of that's disappearing, and nobody knows where it's going, so there's that side of it as well. But yeah, no, so that's what I was going to say to that.
Yeah, see, the thing is, what annoys me about these unions and the People's Assembly is I feel a little bit like I do when I hear David Cameron say we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And I won't be attending the next union march. I will not be. I'll go straight to wherever I was going to be going afterwards. If there's something like Occupy afterwards, I'll stand up for my fellow humans, the ones sat there in the pissing cold rain, and they're fighting for democracy. You don't get pay because democracy is not, it's broken. Fight with us and you might actually get it a different way, rather than standing together as workers for a pay rise. So what? Once you get your pay rise, where are you going to go? I'm not helping them no more, because we need to stand on this together, because as soon as they get a pay rise, they're not going to stand for the people who need social housing. They're not going to stand for animal rights. They're not going to stand for human rights. They're not going to stand for all these things, because they'll get a pay rise. And
Yeah, I think
like you said,
you're
they're
right.
funded by everyone else, and it just feels very much like when I go to any event like that now, these big marches for strikers and stuff like that, and I bet the people feel exactly the same. It's all right, the union's taking them on these marches, but half these union members go on fucking holiday the day that they're all striking. And most of them, Royal Mail's one in Peterborough goes on holiday as soon as they strike, because he doesn't want the hassle, because he's probably paid to do it. Unions are just as much of a profitable organisation as charities and Parliament. It's no
People
different.
have said this before us. People have, Gramsci, for example, a famous philosopher in Italy, said that exact same thing, that the unions, as well as the schools and those kind of institutions, are part of the system, and it's all a method of indoctrination where the union is built to keep the workers in line. And if the workers' temper boils, the union is supposed to quash that temper by saying, well, look, let's go on a march. One day, it's a day out. Everybody's happy. You come back, and you've sort of released some of that anger. And it's almost like it's a managing firm in a way, where they manage your anger to make sure it doesn't boil over. So there's a company. I mean, the companies can deal with 1 or 2 days loss. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes they do big shows where they battle it down with the companies, but yet they always keel over in the end. I mean, the point of it, though, is that, and this has been my point for quite some time, is the idea of, money rules society. And I do not accept the fact that there is no money on the left and on the side of activists, because there is. In the sense that if you look at the unions and People's Assembly, they have millions of pounds between them.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, and if they really wanted to change things, they could field candidates across London with a legal team, a dedicated legal team, to make sure that these candidates don't screw up on any laws, deal with the campaigning that they need to have, pay for the leaflets, pay for advertising, whatever it may be, and get those people elected. If they really wanted to make change, they could invest that money all out in a political campaign, which I think is the best way of changing things. Marches.
Yeah. Do you think that they had they were actually plugging on social media to ignore anonymous and activist groups in the union rally? So they had no intention whatsoever of joining Occupy.
Did they?
Yes, they did. They plugged it on social media.
Oh, yeah. Then sorry, but it's a big screw you. I'm like you then.
They plugged it, because it was going on, and they did Reclaim the City at the same time. Reclaim the City was, and then you've got also the Occupy event, and you've got the other events. It was going through social media. A lot of the people who were doing them were like, no, we're not giving any support. Actually, we'd rather not have these groups at the event. So when you look at it like that, they're not really there for anything but themselves, are they?
Well, that just clarifies Matteo's point, though, doesn't it? If the money's there and the people are there and they have their day, then fine. Then
can you imagine how they could have helped Occupy if they'd have turned up?
We said on the day, if 1% turned up. If 1% of those people, if they said there was 100,000 people there, 1% of that amount of people said that they would go to Parliament Square, it would have been a different national press there. There would have been like, what the hell's going on here? It would have hit.
Just to give an example of UKIP and how UKIP would look like if we had something like that on the left. Of a sort of activist thing. Could you imagine for a second if Anonymous, dealing with the internet, their expertise being online marketing, online advertising, online social media, etc. Then you've got Occupy, the sort of ground troops, if you will, people that are willing to go that extra mile, protesting on the ground. Then you've got the unions bankrolling candidates in elections. On top of that, you've got the People's Assembly who can organise mass rallies and do it well. Could you imagine if those 4 groupings came together? People's Occupy doing occupations and protests on a regular basis, Anonymous consistently pumping out marketing stuff.
And that's the thing now. We've actually got to that. We have had the Million Mask March is plugging Occupy, and Occupy is plugging the 5th of November. So we have actually got to a point where, to be honest, an Occupy Anonymous, apart from their original ideas and the way Occupy is very political almost in the way it works with the hand gestures, the rulings, the way it's very democratic. It's very, and Anonymous is very.
It's very aggressive. I mean, that's what you need. You need that peaceful thinking side, and then you need the sort of hardcore.
And they are just gelling into each other, because I can't tell the difference on who's who anymore. Because they're both attending each other's events, and then you've got Class War and Reclaim the City. All these, they were all sort of standing by. The reason why a lot of Anonymous did not come to Occupy, I would put my money on, would be the 90-day bans they were putting on, and the worry on the damage it was going to cause the 5th of November, which I'm sure the media and the police, the way that it worked, I'm sure that's exactly what they wanted to portray. So
but
that's why
come
I think
to be wrong, though, hasn't it? That's come out to be like a fear, like you say, a fear.
Yeah, but you don't know that because they're bailed.
I didn't know that. That was when, like, when
they're bailed, so you don't know. They might when they're bailed, but they will send a letter out, right? And that's what they'll do. It's the wardens that will be sending the 90-day bans out, not the courts.
I mean, the other thing, of course.
So you don't know if that's not going through or not.
I mean, the point about, obviously, I mean, the interlinkage and the gelling and so forth, it's great that Occupy and Anonymous are gelling, and you can see that quite clearly. The one problem, the one thing that I think there's a problem is that, as I say, in this society, the only thing that matters, the trouble is that the people that have the money aren't gelling with the general group. So Anonymous and Occupy have gelled nicely. So you've got, the ground people that are willing to go that extra mile. You've got Anonymous with their incredible marketing capacity. But the unions, who are supposed to be bringing in the candidates, who are supposed to be bringing in the finances to be able to bankroll any legal fees that are going to arise, because let's be honest, there are a hell of a lot of legal fees. Dealing with the marketing for the campaign, that needs money as well. The organization that has all the money, and the unions take it from the workers. That's collective money that the workers are giving the unions. These are the same people that are supporting Anonymous, that are supporting Occupy, are giving their money, though. Instead of those two are giving it to the unions. They're not gelling with the rest. They're doing their own thing.
Do you think that's a control of the media, though?
Huh?
Do you think that's a predominant control of the media, though? The way that it's actually controlled, the people think that the union will be the way to go, funding it through that, and just if you had Caroline Lucas having the same amount of airtime. Now I lean towards the same factor as you as this, Matteo. I do believe that the only way that you can change a system is by effectively working within the system. Sometimes you've got to be able to go in there, tweak it, because there's rules and things that you can do to your advantage. If Caroline Lucas had the same level playing field, the Green Party had the same level playing field as UKIP, it would be a different scenario. We wouldn't be having the same arguments and the same discussions. It wouldn't be the same mantra that's going over neoliberalism. It would be a completely different contextual story. She spoke there yesterday, and you had a completely different version of what was going on. These are the ideas we want to do. But I see that as a natural progression. Once we get that, we can move on again. That's not, that's not the be-all and end-all of our political system. Right, we're going to be green, and that's it. I
mean, it's just the start. It's the point is it's something. And it's the idea. I mean, the point about Caroline Lucas is the reason why she doesn't have the same amount of airtime as UKIP is because UKIP has a hell of a lot of money. It has a hell of a lot more money than she does. But if the union suddenly, just for argument's sake, decided to dump their money on the Greens, the Green would explode because of the money that comes into it. I mean, it's an annoying factor to always go back to this idea of money. But if you want to change the system is so ingrained in absolutely everything that we do in life that you can't do anything, in my opinion, other than combating it inside as well as outside. Because if you just do outside, the media, and so it's not the state. The government is powerless. It's the media and the social system that will alienate you from the mainstream people, from the media and stuff. They will alienate you and destroy. Because it's not about assassinations anymore. You know, in the West, we don't care about assassinations. It's about assassinating your character. Once they
Yeah,
deem you
blackballing you.
for a crackpot, you're screwed. You can never go into politics. Nobody will listen to you. And it's more dangerous because if you get your character assassinated, you are going around, you have all these opinions, but everybody will just say, oh, well, you're a nutter. Obviously, you have that opinion. You know, it's the idea of assassinating someone's character. And unless you have those finances to back up and to defend yourself and to then be able to counterattack.
But even if you do, they are quite capable of assassinating people. Have you noticed the way that the celebrities get blackballed and their character assassinated as soon as they step out of line? I don't think it matters how much money you've got. If you're not in favour at that time and you're not doing what they want, then you'll get totally blackballed. And that's really, really big thing in the West.
I would argue slightly differently in the sense that with celebrities, their wealth is borrowed. It's not their own. Like with celebrities, their money comes from the media. So when they get blackballed, it's not just that they're assassinating their character, because if the celebrity's money came from somewhere else, they could defend themselves. But as soon as the paparazzi start to destroy them, all of their funding from their films, from whatever they're doing, suddenly gets cut off. And when you don't, that's the point, is when you don't have money to defend yourself, then that's when they destroy you. And with celebrities, because their wealth is borrowed, it'll be like if Kim Kardashian, for example, or somebody of that nature, did something political, for example, and they tried to blackball her, they would be able to, because her wealth is borrowed, is strictly because of the amount of press she's getting is the reason why she's getting so much money. But with activists, it's something else, because you've got your ideals. You're not doing it for money. Money is simply a vessel, a way for you to get what you want done. And because of that, even if they start to attack you, they can't cut off your funding. Just because they write something bad about you, they've been writing something bad about you for generations. Your money's not going to change. The union money's still going to be there. So you can then defend yourself and market yourself out there regardless of what they say. It's like with UKIP, for example, when the Conservatives, they're attacking Nigel Farage, but because his money comes from somewhere else, racists, it doesn't matter because that money's still there and he's pushing forward and he's got MPs in Parliament.
Yeah, he has. And the thing is with places like UKIP and that, with the money that they've got and the tactics they're using, we noted on this the other day. There was a couple of when we paper storm and Twitter storm, we have to think of ideas of ways to get through to the mainstream and what trends and what makes them angry. Now UKIP hit straight on immigrants, racism, and it worked a treat, and that's how they got. Or I can't even remember what it was Labour was left with. They had something else. They had another thing they had to run with, but it was basically the two options that they had to run with, and Labour went, got the raw deal really. UKIP went straight in for the immigrant situation, which Labour created a run up to, and then Conservative finished it off because Labour started this as well. And Conservative have just steamrolled through the plans like the NHS sell-off, which was down to Labour in the beginning. It doesn't matter which politician of those guys get in, it's still the same corporations that they're selling for and that they're privatising. It's just with Labour, they're a little bit less. They're a little more humanitarian in their wake of destruction, or maybe they had longer length plans, I don't know. But either way, they didn't go and kill the 10,600 that Tories did, which has risen from like 34 something a week to 75. So you're looking at a massive, massive rise of deaths of disabled this year in the last few years. And then the fact that they're not being called up on that is crazy. They are being called up on it by activists, but I wonder how many people's grandparents and kids and brothers and sisters need to die before they stand up. The lonely ones seem to go first.
I don't know when that tipping point is for that as a society, but it's hard for them people to realise that when...
I need to go, sorry about this, but...
Okay.
Oh, you off? No, that's fine. That's okay. Well, we've had a good chat anyway. That's cool.
Yeah,
take care.
He's had some problems. I'll catch you later, Matteo. But yeah, I'm sorry, he had some problems.
Bye.
See you later.
Do you want to go off live?
Yeah.